5 years ago, I was the faculty speaker for the class of 2009. I gave a speech titled, "I'm Really Great and Super Awesome," currently on YouTube. There were three things that I spoke about in that speech: maturity, money, and love. I'm going to expand upon one of those today. Tim Seaborn even closed his speech to last year's class with a word about this. Today, I'm talking about love, more specifically, marriage. And some of you may think this has nothing to do with you, and some of you may have just gotten a queasy feeling in your stomach. Please, stick with me until the end. I hope to make this worth your time. Before we begin, I need to make two things abundantly clear. Number one, and this is most important, if you are over the age of 25, I am not talking to you. I am not talking to you, and I am not talking about you. You are grown adults. You have made your choices. You have had your successes, and you have made your mistakes. And frankly, I have no right to speak to you about marriage. So it's very important that you understand that I'm not talking to you. But I think I have earned the right to speak to your children seated in front of me here. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are my target audience. And as far as I'm concerned, you're my only audience. In fact, all you people over the age of 25, you have my permission to just check out. Just sit there and think about how proud you are of your kids, or play some Angry Birds or 2048. Secondly, to all my LGBT friends out there, know that I love you dearly. And solely for the sake of the simplicity of this speech, I will be talking about marriage between a man and a woman. Please, feel free to adjust pronouns to fit your situation. Got it? Not talking to you or about you. Adjust pronouns as necessary. And if you don't know what a pronoun is, then we have bigger issues to talk about. So onward, marriage. Marriage is what brings us here together today. Allow me to begin by describing my relationship with my wife. I'm sure you've heard people talking about how they married their best friend, but you know what? Somehow that idea just never really applied to us. For some reason, I've never really thought of Beth as my best friend. Do you know how many hobbies we have in common? There's TV. We like watching TV together. And that's about it. I'm not 100% sure how this has worked, but somehow it has. Certainly it's not TV that has kept us together and super happily married all these years, but it is funny that there aren't a whole lot of things that we have in common, and yet somehow it's wonderful and it works. Okay, I think I do know the keys to our successful marriage. It's two things: communication and choice. I'll address communication first. We went to a couple of pre-marriage counseling sessions shortly after our engagement. After answering dozens of multiple choice questions, we were given a printout that indicated areas of strength and potential weaknesses in our relationship. We literally scored off the charts in the area of communication. And yes, unlike most of you, I know how to use the word literally correctly. The chart only went up to 90, and we scored 100. And that has been a huge key to the success of our marriage. We talk things through. We have learned compromise. We even found a way to make our own decisions. We're both math people, so numbers work well for us. So, for example, my wife might tell me that she wants to hang out with Dan and Kelly Jones on Saturday night, and I don't really care much for the Jones family or their three children, and I was planning on staying home and watching a movie Saturday night. So we came up with a system. It's a math number system. Well, how much do you really want to hang out with the Joneses? Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm at about an 8. What about you? Well, I was only at a 6 or a 7 for staying home. So we communicate and we compromise. Okay, I guess compromise probably isn't the right word for this, because typically compromise involves an agreement where both parties give something up. I don't know, maybe a compromise would have been having a movie night with the Joneses. But however, in this case, since 8 is bigger than 6 and 7, Beth just flat out wins. But marriage, and any relationship in general, is not a single isolated incident. In over 13 years of marriage, I have lost some of those decisions. Every time I let Beth have her way, I've given something up. Over the course of our marriage, we have each given something up. For some disagreements, we're able to arrive at a happy medium, but for most of those individual decisions, there is a clear-cut winner and loser. But a marriage is not about those individual disagreements and decisions. On the whole, we both make concessions, and the marriage is all the stronger because of it. I remember hearing a guy talk about marriage years ago. I think I was in middle school, and he spoke about this goal he had in marriage. He was dead set on out-serving his wife. He said, no matter what happens, every morning I wake up and I make parties had that kind of an attitude toward each other. It's a healthy relationship. Now you got to be careful though. If you think you can outserve your wife to trick her into outserving you, then you're just trying to serve yourself. Don't do that. Marriage is not about you. It's about you two, the us, the we. And maybe honoring the us and the we means that you sacrifice a little for your spouse. Maybe you recognize the importance of that annual golf weekend he has with his college buddies. Maybe you forego one of your poker nights in lieu of a night out with your wife. Maybe you hold off on buying a bigger TV for your man cave because you want to budget a little extra money so your wife can get monthly pedicures with her girlfriends. A friend of mine put it very simply. He said, the more you serve and honor your... I define love. And I think the truest definition of love is commitment. The tingles, that butterflies in your stomach feeling you get around your new true love, it doesn't last. That feeling where you could just stare into each other's eyes for weeks on end. Yeah, that feeling won't be around for happily ever after. Let me tell you, I was a fetching young lad 17 years ago when my wife and I started dating. Her friends used to make fun of her because she had this cute little permagrin on her face at the beginning of a relationship. My existence made her happy. Does that still do it for her now? Does she uncontrollably smile at the mere thought of me? Good gracious, no. Is she still happy I exist? Yeah, I think so. But the tingles do not drive our relationship. And that brings me to the second key to our successful marriage. Choice. Every day we choose to love each other. We make decisions that are for the good of the marriage, not the good of ourselves. Do we do this perfectly and consistently? No, of course not. We're selfish beings. But deep down, we are both committed to this marriage. Day in and day out, I choose to love my wife. Frankly, there are times when I just don't feel like it. I'm too self-absorbed at the moment. I'm too tired. I'm too preoccupied with something else. Loving my wife is not at the top of my list. But deep down, the decision is made. Every morning, I kiss my wife and I tell her that I love her. Every night, I kiss my wife and I tell her that I love her. And on most days, I find time to repeat that process somewhere in between. I didn't know where to put this in the speech, so I'm just throwing it in here. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about expressing love. Humor me here. Let's pretend that maybe, just maybe, some of the social values held in the olden days were correct. Let's just say that maybe they had it right when polite society thought that you didn't hold hands until you were married. What if that's the right way to do things? I know. We're much more free and independent and liberated these days. And Bruns, I don't think you understand. It's just holding hands. Well, I don't think it is just holding hands. I don't think you can make it just anything. Yes, our current culture and society does everything in its power to make it seem like an expected step in every relationship. Everybody holds hands. It's no big deal. You're young, hold hands with as many people as you can. Buy our product and you'll get her to hold hands with you. How are you ever going to know if you should marry someone if you don't hold hands yet? Our sources of influence, TV, music, movies, tell us that it's no big deal. But oddly enough, in the same breath, they tell us that it's a huge deal. It's a very strong emotional experience. And if it didn't carry so much emotional weight, why would television and movies devote so much screen time to something as meaningless as holding hands? Can you really numb yourself to the emotional connection of holding hands? Can you use holding hands as a way to gain acceptance or self-confidence or to satisfy some other need? Temporarily, sure. But I don't think you can ever fully separate the emotional from the physical. And don't even try to tell me that you can handle just holding hands. You think you can separate the physical hand-holding from the emotional connection? You're teenagers. You throw a conniption fit over text messages. You lose your mind over Twitter. You go ballistic over someone's Instagram on Facebook. You are not rational beings at this stage of your lives. You are emotional train wrecks. Do you honestly believe that you, and most 20-somethings for that matter, are emotionally mature enough to deal with the emotional baggage that accompanies holding hands? But what if you're inside of the safety of a committed marriage relationship? A place where your holding hands will never get thrown back in your face. A place where regret about holding hands never creeps in. Maybe, just maybe, those people from the olden days were onto something. A friend of mine named Cindy Bayon told me a story about a job she had while in college. She drove the school transportation bus around college for students who needed a ride. There was one rule for the college students driving these buses. You may not back up. Too many accidents were caused by relatively inexperienced drivers backing up a bus. Which means if backing up is not an option, you drive that bus differently. You have a plan mapped out. You don't just blindly turn down narrow streets or alleys unless you know where you're going. If you remove backing up from your list of options, you drive differently. So why did she tell me this? Well, she related it to marriage. If you remove divorce as a possible option, you run your marriage differently. I know I'm oversimplifying things here, but if divorce is still on the table, I'm just able to run my marriage however I want. And if it doesn't work out, well, then I can start all over again with someone else. If you remind yourself that divorce is not an option, you make better long-term decisions. I have very rarely regretted a time where I've held my tongue. I'm committed to my marriage. I'm committed to my wife. I'm not committed to being right in the heat of the moment. I'm not committed to me. Have I done this every time? No. There are times that I have said hurtful words that I have certainly regretted. Can you have a fight? Yes, because apologies and forgiveness are also part of a healthy marriage. And that is love. I heard a man named Scott McKee speak on marriage once, and he said the following. He said, I love what G.K. Chesterton wrote, a great writer. He wrote, if people can be divorced for incompatibility, I cannot conceive why all of us are not divorced. I have known many happy marriages, but never a compatible one. Scott said, the whole aim of marriage is to fight through and survive the instant when incompatibility becomes certain. Even the word compatible is a very interesting word. It comes from two different words, com, which means with, and patable, from pathos, which means suffer. To suffer with. To make a promise that says, sometimes by a gift of grace, marriage may be real easy. Sometimes it may involve some suffering, but we're going to walk through it together. Yeah, will there be suffering in your home? Holy cow, yes. Sometimes it will be financial suffering. Sometimes it will be suffering with health-related issues. Sometimes it will be suffering with feelings of discontentment. And sometimes that suffering comes in the form of potty training. I've got two sons, the boy who's 8, and then the other one who's 4. Potty training with the boy went pretty smoothly. The other one, not so much. That kid is stubborn. And I remember very vividly standing in the kitchen, staring at the puddle of urine on the other one's chair, dripping onto the floor. This puddle that appeared just moments after repeated, are you sure you don't have to go potty? Tell me if you have to go potty. How about we go try? If you don't have to go, then why are you holding onto your penis? Come on, let's just go. No, I don't have to go. And I remember staring at this puddle, this last straw of a puddle. I just couldn't clean up one more accident. And on the verge of tears, I grabbed my wife and I wrapped my arms around her, and she just held me. I was so frustrated. We were so frustrated. And I knew that it was just something that we had to suffer through together. That was a year and a half ago. If you care for an update, The other one is now a skilled toileteer. He's also quite the chatterbox. Dude loves to talk. A couple of weeks ago, we were at the boys' soccer practice, and of course, the other one had to go. So, here's the conversation that occurred in the stall of the soccer field bathroom. Okay, buddy, you think you're done? Daddy, why do you have pictures of chickens on your shirt? I don't know, it's just funny pictures. Are you about done? What do the words on your shirt say? It says, Los Pollos Hermanos. Come on, are you about done? Why are the chickens wearing pants? They look really funny. Yeah, the kid can multitask. It certainly sounds like I'm saying that once you've been married for a while, all the spark leaves. There are no more butterflies or tingles. This is clearly not the case. Marriage is a beautiful thing. Believe me, there are wonderful times when my wife are just laying in bed and the moonlight hits her just right, and I get lost in the way that she can smile with just her eyes, and then someone farts and ruins it all. But dang it, that's love! Because if you think you're going to live in the same house with this person for the rest of your life and hold in your farts 24/7, you are going to be miserable, both emotionally and physically. Human beings are gross, disgusting creatures. Love is being able to hold on to that disgustingness. I'm not saying you should let it all go and simply, hey, baby, this is me, take it or leave it. But should you be able to look and smell like a human? I hope so. The other day I came home and I gave my wife a big hug. And then I gave her a little kiss on the neck. Oh, you went running today, huh? Yeah, I haven't had a chance to shower yet. That's love! I've had the same haircut for the last 18 years. My wife uses a pair of clippers to cut my hair in the backyard. And the fact is, I have the ear hair of a 70-year-old. The grandpas in the room know what I'm talking about. Do you think Beth knew that this is what she was getting into 14 years ago? For better, for worse, in sickness and in health, I promised to hack through your ear hair like an explorer making his way through the Amazon rainforest with a machete. And she didn't exactly say those words, but they were implied. You are marrying a human being. Farts, ear hair, warts, and all. One last point to you students, and then I'll talk to you grown-ups. Students, I need you to promise me one thing. Let's say you get married and you have some kids. And let's also say that things fall apart in your marriage. Let's say things fall apart in your marriage and you get a divorce. Promise me that you will make it painfully clear to your children that your divorce had nothing to do with them. There has not been a single divorce in the history of mankind where any ounce of blame can be placed upon the children. Two grown-ups make grown-up choices and grown-up decisions in grown-up situations. If you experience a divorce, that is your divorce, and you make sure that your children share none of that responsibility. I need you to understand that. So allow me to close by addressing the elephant in the room. What a terribly inappropriate topic for a high school graduation speech. Why would you choose such a topic? Don't you realize that there are a large number of people who've experienced divorce in this room right now? Don't you think that would make things a little uncomfortable? Why couldn't you have just told us how great our children are? Yeah, great questions. Why talk about this? Clearly this is something I'm passionate about, and I love your children, and that can't be said enough. I love them in the most appropriate way that a 35-year-old man can love a group of 18-year-olds. And I weighed heavily the pros and cons of writing this speech. The worst case scenario was that a few dozen of you are so offended by what I've said today that you storm down to the administration building and demand my resignation. If you're mad, maybe you could just send me an email. and I wasn't talking to you anyway. So why choose to speak about marriage? First off, I don't think anyone else is talking about this. Beth and I went into our marriage knowing what it was going to take. As newlyweds, we went into marriage seminars, we did weekend retreats, we did marriage studies, and I don't think many people know how beneficial those things can be right off the bat. Somehow we were smart enough to address potential problems before they became problems at all. We Americans are pretty bad at this whole marriage thing. Divorce sucks. That's just a fact. I don't care. Regardless of blame cause, divorce is a painful, messy, and costly process. Even though marriage may be years away for some of these students, I wanted to give your kids a heads up. They deserve to know what marriage can be and what it's all about. And aside from you parents, I don't think anybody else in the world is telling them this. And maybe, just maybe, in 15 years, one of you students comes back to me and says, you know, I never had you in class, and I've been married for 3 years now, and I remember that you spoke at my graduation, and my marriage has taken a turn from the worst. Could I look through your notes? Maybe something there can help me make this work. Maybe, just maybe, in 2054, when you are gathered at your 40th reunion, instead of 50% of you being divorced, maybe that number is closer to 20%. And maybe all of this meant nothing to you. But maybe, just maybe, there's a kid sitting next to you who needed to hear something I had to say. People don't remember words from graduation speeches. They remember ideas. And maybe you will remember that there was a man who spoke passionately about marriage in an attempt to pass that hope and passion on to you. I had to cut 15 minutes from my first draft of this speech. So clearly, I could literally talk about marriage forever. Thank you truly for allowing me to speak to you today. And now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'd like to go home and hold hands with my wife.